So yeah, I'm have just like a few general questions for everyone. And so just feel free to unmute yourself and talk and share your story. So right now we have um so before I start, I just want to acknowledge the Kumeyaay people as the traditional caretakers of the land surrounding on the surrounding ecoscape of UCSD, and that we all work here and are mindful and in support of the indigenous people that are in this place, past, present, and emerging. So I'll just be posing a few questions and feel free to unmute yourself and answer, or if you would like to be like in conversation with another. Um, and so I also would like to give a highlight and shout out to our co-managing director, Haley Brown, who is almost the backbone of our team. um, so make sure to give a lot of love to Haley, to our production stage manager, Ruby Hayes, obviously our big boss, Kevin, and then our beautiful cast members, Jake, Min, Mia, Roxy, Gabby, Gabrielle, and then our wonderful choreographer, Erica, and our executive producer, Patty. So I guess one of first question I have is that if anyone feel free to just jump in at any time, but to share like something that was the most challenging, unexpected, or interesting thing that you either learned or experienced while producing a virtual play.
I guess I can break the ice. From a creative perspective, it's like it's just genuinely unlike any physical production in the ways of planning anything. And I'm sure that Erica, who's our choreographer, can attest to that. Like blocking is now like only half of the picture. It's also like deciding how you want it to look. I think that was one of the biggest things that I realized early on is just that like when you are doing something on stage, you know what it will look like. It will be in this space. You know whether or not you have a proscenium. You know what the space looks like, more or less, even if the scenic designers haven't finished stuff yet. Um, but with a digital show, you have to design the way that everything looks, all of the layouts. But even before that, you have to make the decision of whether you want people pretending to look at each other like we did for this show, or whether you want people looking straight at the camera. There are just so many creative decisions that just have to make before you can even start thinking about what this might look like. And I think very early on, I realized that there's just a lot of those decisions that have to be made because you have to start making a space because you're not in the theater anymore.
Erica, what was it like choreographing virtually and like coordinating all of that?
Yeah, I think also Mia can speak a little bit to this also, but we made sure to um, not only show on Zoom and teach on Zoom, but we were very careful to meet individually with the cast to make sure that they were getting things so that we could see. We had them turning in progress videos so that we could see their dancing better than on Zoom. And we're fortunate that Zoom lets us rearrange the boxes. So we were able to put them in that proscenium from Be the Hero we could actually do on Zoom, see the direction that their arms were pointing and stuff like that. So it's a challenge, but we worked it to our benefit. I don't know if Mia has anything to add.
Yeah, it was definitely quite an experience, especially with the tap number when we were like teaching it. I don't remember the last time I wrote out like individual tap steps. We actually wrote it all on a doc, like a Google Doc, wrote out each step, which was I can't remember the last time I did that. And then also just like recording videos. It was weird, like I'm usually a dance teacher, but like teaching it to a camera first and then teaching it over Zoom, it was a new experience, but I felt like it went really well and everyone had their own like tap boards and stuff. But yeah, I thought it was fun.
Ruby, could you speak to how stage management was different, like virtually, and yeah, the experience of you and as well as your team?
Yeah, I think like the first thing that I noticed that was really specific to my job was helping try to schedule everything. We learned just really quickly that we just didn't have as much time as we normally would. Normally, we have 10 weeks to stage the show and get everything together. And then we have 1 week of tech. But we needed to start filming. We needed to film for more than a week. We couldn't just film during tech week. So we had to start filming at the end of the 8th week. So that meant we had to teach everyone everything in a much shorter amount of time. And we didn't get to run through things as much. So I guess trying to help schedule that. And then um, when we started filming, we had to figure out how we were going to, because our rehearsals for most of our filming days were 3 hours, and we had to figure out how we were going to have a cast of 18 people all get their lights, their costumes, their makeup, their scenic pieces, their props, and everything all ready. And then they had to film afterwards and do the scene, and like they had to rehearse this, get all ready with all the design elements. Then they had to rehearse the scene a couple of times to make sure that they were doing everything correctly. We gave blind notes during that time, and then they filmed the scene. And I had to help schedule and make sure that like we had this big spreadsheet of who was going to be in which breakout room at which time. We had breakout rooms for filming, and or for the designers. At the beginning of rehearsal, each designer was in a breakout room, and the cast would move through those breakout rooms to check in with the designers. They would check off costume pieces with our costume designer. Our lighting designer would tell them what color they needed their lights to be that day and if they were going to have to change them during the scene. And so I would schedule, me and Kevin helped a lot. We would schedule the breakout rooms together and figure out who's going to be in which room at which time. And then my stage management team, my whole team of assistant stage managers and production assistants got to man those breakout rooms and be in charge and let me know if anyone was having trouble with something or if there was an issue or something broke or if they were just running behind. And we had to all coordinate that and make sure that we were all, we had a group chat going to make sure that we all knew where every cast member was. For the first hour and a half of rehearsal, we had to know who was in which breakout rooms at all times and keep each other updated. So that was like the most challenging part. And I think it was also the most fun to be able to coordinate all of those breakout rooms together.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just want to let our guests know if you have any questions or comments or compliments or praises, just feel free to drop those in the chat. I do want to give each member of the cast a chance to speak about their experience, but one of the most like amazing moments of the show for me was during Showdown and how all the screens, how like they were different colors of backlights. And it was just so trippy. I don't know. I know we don't have any of the or we have some video editors in the room, but if Kevin, you wanted to speak about your creative direction on that, and anyone else would like to please not even on that scene, but how you coordinated the editing and stuff like that.
I as far as like lighting design and stuff, because that was all practically done. That was all stuff that people did during like while we filmed it, and I wish I could take literally any credit for it, but I had an incredible team of designers this year, and they did so much for this production. And Stella particularly had some fantastic lighting stuff that she did. And so I was like, I want this to feel like a nightmare. And she's like, got it. And then it looked like that. It was fantastic. As far as video editing, video editing was a long and complicated process. We had a lot of different video editors just trying to go by that many hands make light work type of idea. And so it involved I who had designed like all of the layouts and like had plans for like when the layouts would transition between them. I went through and I wrote down what the transition is, what I envisioned it being, how I would envision it being, and I handed all of that off in one big document off to the video editors. And then I was like, I'm not a video editor, so I don't know if any of this works and or will just look terrible. So a lot of the decisions, particularly during Showdown, all of like the crazy movements of all those boxes, that was all from Jenna Dern, who's a former director of Your Musical and one of our video editors. That was all her. I really am just incredibly lucky to have just such an incredible team of designers and editors who made so many awesome choices that I could come to them with abstract ideas and like vague things that I drew out on a piece of scratch paper and was like, this is what it should look like. And for them to take that and run with it. And it was fantastic to watch it come together, and it was fantastic to see.
Yeah, I would also just like to shout out the video editors of Arlene, Grace, Jenna, Zachary, and Ty, as well as the assistant videographers, Caitlin, Spencer, and Hallie. Absolutely like blown away at their work. But I guess now I would like to move on to each of our cast members, our stars. So we'll start off with I'll have Jake start off. If you just want to talk about your experience as Edward Bloom, any parts of the production that you found challenging or interesting, or that was unexpected, or maybe something that you thought maybe worked better in the virtual format. And when you're done sharing, if you could just popcorn it to another cast member so they can get their chance to speak. But yeah, Jake, take it away.
Yes. Hello. I'm Jake. Played Edward. Um, it was it was definitely a crazy experience to do it in this way. I mean, just like having things just delivered to my door at just weird hours, and then just having to create all of those different sets and props and all those things were definitely weird and a challenge. I think it's definitely a challenge to be able to interact with other people when you're on an actual stage. You're able to like bounce off of people, and I think that acting sense is a lot more um, apparent, a lot easier to. So the connections between people were definitely tricky, but what we did was fantastic. We had a Zoom meeting open, so we could hear each other during the scenes. We could like get people's sense of how they were doing the lines, so we could react off of them that way. Um, Filming was hectic, and it was definitely difficult with doing microphones and lighting changes and all of that stuff. So it was definitely a lot to juggle. Um, but I mean, the designers and Kevin's direction for this show, just like it steered the whole thing in a direction that we were able to go. I mean, my preliminary talks with Kevin about, the character Edward was so just enlightening too, because I had read the script and listened to the music and stuff, but being able to really bring Edward to a place where it's honest and where he's, someone likable and not just having issues being a father. And I think Kevin and our discussions of many hours talking about Edward um and his choices and his struggles with all of that, it really just helped bring the whole thing together. But I think you were saying what does work on a virtual. I think it really helps to be more personal. When you're in a stage, sometimes it can be big and they're far away or whatever. You have to make big actions, and I think in virtual, it's really up close and personal. You can really see um, the people's emotions or stuff in that way. And I think in a virtual environment, it's a lot more personal in that way. So yeah, I'll popcorn it to Sandra Templeton. Gabby.
Hello, I'm Gabby. I play Sandra. Um, oh my goodness, this was such a wild experience. It wasn't my first online show, but it was my first online musical, and it was completely different. Even though the other one I also filmed same right here in my room. That was the weirdest thing. This was my stage. Right now there's a poster and a tree here. That was not there. I filmed everything from right here. I had my tripod right here, and I just filmed right there, which is, I don't know, this is such a different experience, because for me, when I think of theater, I think of liveness. And I think that's a big part that I think about in my performances is that that connection that you get on stage in that moment. And like Jake said, we had like the Zoom meeting open, and we luckily we were able to hear people, and somehow we got each other's timing down. I'm not 100% sure how we did that, but yeah, it was so interesting for me. I think I saw, especially in Daffodils last night, when I'd never seen Jake really do that. Um, and I don't know, I really understood Sandra falling for him when when I actually got to see it. Yeah, I don't know. Mia and Erica kind of talked about it, but the tap was such an interesting experience to do online. First of all, learning it is just such an interesting such an interesting thing, because tap I feel like is already so hard to learn, and you know, dealing with the Zoom delay and everything. But we were so lucky to have Erica, Mia, and Holly, because the whole system that they had for, like, someone would be teaching, and then someone would be demonstrating, and someone would be monitoring the chat while we were learning. And it was just such a good system. And I don't know how, like, they figured that all out, but it was just such a help to have people who were so, like, willing to put in that extra work to make sure that even though the show wasn't live, wasn't you know, in person in a theater, that we still got to make the best show that we could. And there was, I mean, especially with, I've mentioned the choreographers, but like Kevin, we had storyboards with Kevin every night. We got to see his where we were on the screen and everything. And I don't know, I'm just so grateful for all the extra work that, I mean, everyone, but especially the designers, put in to this show, to make it look amazing, even though, you know, it wasn't live, it wasn't in person. And you talked about this is the something that worked online. Something that I really liked was in Red, White, and True, we had some firework effects. I don't know if we could have gotten those pyrotechnics in real life, but I really enjoyed seeing those at the end of Red, White, and True. And I will pass it to my former fiance, Don or Min.
All right. Hey guys. Yeah. My name's Min. I play Don Price in the show, and definitely like the biggest like part of the show for me was like learning everything, because like at any given instance I only have like 3 brain cells working at a time. So like especially for learning like music and dance, when we did like in-person shows, I always have to like depend on like my fellow actors to like know what my notes are and like what I should be like what move I should be doing, because like it's really obvious when like everyone's doing one thing and I'm like 3 steps behind. So that's definitely like the part that I like struggle with the most. But because of that, I'm also extremely thankful for Jacob, our music director, Erica and Mia, who helped me learn like like all the dance numbers. I don't know I genuinely don't know how I would be able to like do any of that without them. And for like the team to schedule like so much of that just for us to like know what we're doing. It's it's just amazing that everyone got to do that. And like, yeah, definitely like the other thing is like normally for me when I do theater, I feed off a lot of like my castmates' energy and as well as the audience's energy. So like, and when we're doing like Zoom theater, there like we don't have like a live audience with us, so like the energy from the cast is doubly important for me, and I'm really glad that everyone brought like so much energy to the show. I'm also thankful for Kevin for giving me Don's role, because I get to yell like 24/7, which gives me a lot of energy. So that's definitely like a part of like what made it so enjoyable. But like at the same time, everyone in the cast are such amazing people, and like I'm constantly so thankful that I got to work with them to like bring this amazing show together, as well as like all the cast, I mean all the crew and production as well. So yeah. I'll popcorn it to Roxy.
Cool. Hi. So yeah, like everybody else has been saying, there are definitely pros and cons to um Zoom theater. Like in the whole filming process in general, and like people ding dong ditching us with costume pieces and lighting pieces and everything. It was very hectic, but also somehow extremely well organized thanks to Ruby and everyone. So yeah, but it was definitely very different, not being able to perform in an actual theater space. For example, um, we would have to deal with noisy neighbors, or the noisy neighbors would be complaining about our singing or dancing, interrupting their own time, I guess. And also we would get like a little bit of an insight onto like our own like set design, and like setting up the space like Gabby was talking about. And doing our own makeup, which is something I've never really done before, and I was struggling a lot. Also like hair, like our beautiful um costumes designer Maggie, shout out to Maggie, had us do pin curls for Red, White, and True. And that was a whole thing. It was very fun. And it was fun, but we all were in it together, so it was a good time. And yeah, but there were also definitely pros, like getting to take multiple takes if we messed up. So yeah, I don't know. It was bittersweet. Oh, is there anybody else that hasn't gone?
Not on cast, but like um Erica, Mia, Ruby, Kevin, anyone, feel free to jump in, start talking to each other, or if our guests want to give praises or questions. If not, I have another comment. Something that I really appreciated from Kevin from the beginning was his um, support and outreach to students of color and queer and trans students. And so I also just wanted, I know y'all do like check-ins um, during your rehearsals. I wanted to, if anyone can speak to how um, more in detail about how you set aside time during rehearsal space, just to check in with each other, and if any of the cast members or anyone, how that maybe affected or set the tone for the rest of the rehearsal time.
I mean, I can give my perspective, but I feel like I'm biased. Uh, I mean, I think the biggest thing was that was checking in and just starting every rehearsal with some sort of check-in, some sort of question. We tried to do like fun icebreakers every Friday, so that you could actually and not just what's your favorite color. Like we did some fun ones. Like I think one of my all-time favorite icebreakers is like what's something that you used to hate but you really like now. Um, just weird stuff like that helps us learn about each other, and also just checking in. I think something that I'll say it got a lot more difficult to check in with everyone once we started filming, just because of how quick getting people to all the different departments to check in with people was. um and it was something that I still tried, if I could, if the vibes were off, I would still try and check in with people during when we were setting up people's cameras and stuff. Uh, but I would like the cast to be able to speak about how they actually felt, because obviously I don't actually know anything about what they were feeling.
I could just wanted to say, I know once we started filming, we kind of stopped doing these, but we used to do temperature checks like with the whole cast at the top of every rehearsal. And then very early on when we were still like doing character work, and like preliminary blocking, we did some games, We did this, I think it was the first or second rehearsal, we did a scavenger hunt. Um, and that was just such a good time to like bond with the rest of the cast. And it's so hard to like get to know people over Zoom, but I really felt like we built a really nice community with everyone and we were able to get to know each other, despite, a lot of us weren't in the same place. Um, but, and then also, yeah, Kevin, I think, did a great job of, even though we stopped doing temperature checks, like I know I would often like hang out in camera prep for a while. That was like where we set up our cameras. We had different rooms for each designer. Um, and, I know I had some off days and Kevin was always great about checking in and we had some good convos. Yeah, and I always just felt like I was always so happy to go to rehearsal. I mean, obviously there's stress involved in everything, but I just knew that I don't know, I was going to be with this family that we built, and I don't know if that's cheesy, but and I don't know, getting to see everyone and talk to everyone was always such a great thing. I don't know if anyone else wants to talk about it.
Yeah, I just build off of that because I totally agree. I think that was something that I was really scared of like, kind of being our own separate like groups or own separate like individuals. But strangely enough, we did kind of all come together and had our moments of like, you know, of family, of that, cheesy family thing with shows. But it's true. It's weird because I felt like I really connected with everybody in this musical. Um and you're totally right, Gabby, because like I felt like we built such a great group that even when we weren't able to do those, temperature taps more often, each check-in I felt was its own thing too. Like I would go to costumes and then just like just short conversation about like how we're doing, or I'd go to lighting and have a little conversation there, or hang out with Kevin and some of the production team and camera prep and have our own little. So I felt like each design place we went to was its own check-in as well, because everybody was just so supportive and making sure that everybody was doing well and happy. And I was so excited every day to go to rehearsal and just see everyone again, because it was, yeah, it's something that was done really well, and I think it could have gone terribly with Zoom, and it was not. It was the complete opposite. So
I have something to add on the temperature check, but I really appreciated seeing them because Kevin would say questions like, "I'm having a good day today," and people would be like, "So-so," or like, "No." And knowing they were going into dance, which is stressful, and you need to be fully present, especially on Zoom. It's like such a choice to be present and to be focused on what you're doing. It just takes extra brain. And so it was nice for me to know if anybody was like, "I'm just not here today," or like, "I had a really crappy day." It was just nice so that I knew that, if they weren't getting things or they were getting frustrated more easily, I just knew that we were more on the same page.
Like just to speak like just like a related topic, but like since we've been under quarantine for like what, several months by the time like rehearsal started, like I really missed being able to talk to other people. So like getting to meet with so many people every night and just like throwing banter around with like Kevin's just funny questions every Friday, like where he just asks stuff like, "Oh, mix two ice cream flavor," or like something you hate and stuff. It's always so fun just to like have like 5 to 10 minutes of just like funny talking stuff where we talk about how Kevin can't pronounce like French dance names or like stuff or like certain things like that. It's very like just refreshing and like it just makes the fact that we're like how we've been like separated from each other for like so many months just feel just not there, I guess. So I'm always just so thankful and like I'm so always so excited to be able to join rehearsal because I know there's this group of people there who's always so supportive of each other for like um just like create like a fun environment where everyone gets to be open and like honest with like each other. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I was always looking forward to rehearsal, and like Min said, like every day was a blessing. Um, and especially in this time when we're in like in COVID and quarantine, like being in Zoom, it's like we're there with each other in the same room. And the minute we press leave on the Zoom, it's like it all comes back to you that you're alone in your room, and it's just a crazy like feeling to just one moment be with your cheesy family and then the next moment you're alone again. It's yeah. But I'd also like to appreciate something that hasn't been brought up yet is during our rehearsals, closer to the beginning when we were like being introduced to different scenes and stuff, especially when we were going into more serious scenes that dealt with really heavy subjects, like for example the funeral scene or stuff like that. I have to appreciate how Kevin always like made sure we were in the right mindset and focused, and we would just take a moment to like close our eyes and breathe and like recognize what we were going into, and really like prepare ourselves for the emotions that were gonna come up and stuff like that. And also like at the end of every rehearsal, or we would try to at least like close our eyes and like breathe in all of the good stuff that we took in from the rehearsal and breathe out any like stress or anxiety and get ready to go back into our lives outside of theater. And I really appreciated that. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I actually have a question for Erica and Mia. If you could speak more about your collaboration. I think one of the most like stunning moments for me was after Be the Heroes, the choreography for The Witch. That was also like super trippy for me. No, Holly's not here, but if you wanted to speak more about how you all collaborated for the choreography, not just on that, but like other songs as well.
Yeah, so The Witch was actually a lot of fun, and I had been excited about that one since reading the script. That was the first thing I said to Maggie is I really, really, really want capes, and she delivered wonderfully. But I actually didn't have a cape to choreograph with, so I did it through Mia and Holly having the capes and me being like, okay, let's try this, let's try this. And we put that together, and it was a cool experience because like I would choreograph stuff, but I don't know how the material reacts. And I've never used the cape, so I actually really don't even know how they feel dancing with them. But I would do a phrase and then they would be like, okay, well that's like too hard, or like it's gonna get twisted at this part. And so we'd talk about it. And it was a really unique experience because normally we'd be in a space, but I appreciated that collaboration a lot. And I also just appreciate being able to test things on them before testing it on the cast, because normally when we're in a space, I can like put it on everyone and be like, okay, I don't like this formation, I don't like this thing, like let's change it. But teaching it to people in such a tight time frame and then going through things, I didn't have the time to do that. And I also can't like see on Zoom as much with so many people. And so teaching it to them and having a discussion about, oh, this feels awkward, this feels better, this is what this means, was really nice. And we came up with some things that had meaning, like when they go like that, that's like the death pose. So they say it whenever it says death in the show, like in the scene, and then they do it at the end. And just coming up with like little things like that and having those discussions was really, really nice.
Yeah, kind of going off of that, it was definitely a collaborative process. I would say that was probably the hardest number to choreograph. I want to say we spent a good probably 20 hours choreographing that number, not gonna lie. We redid a lot of things. Just because like if we were in person, which I think we tried to do at some point, tried to plan it for like small group filming. Remember when that was a thing? But it like when I think about it, it would have been this big ensemble number with a bunch of jumps, a bunch of turns, and it would have been this like very explosive number. But when you're performing to a camera, you can't do that. So we definitely had to like rethink some things of like, how can I make this move big on a like for a camera and on a computer screen? So that was one of the big things. Also, like I was checking to see if I had my cape, but I sent it home. But that was like one of the things I was like, can I keep it? Because it's really fun to dance in. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with that one. Also, one of the big challenges was switching from the Broadway cast recording to Jacob's version of the music. There was a lot of changes for that one, more than I think we originally anticipated. But it was super fun to like Erica was saying, like the death pose and like figuring out all these different like motifs and moves that we could reuse throughout the number. And I felt like it looked really cool with the arrangement, like the witches around Michaela. I thought it looked super cool. But definitely one of the numbers that we spent the most time on. But I think it paid off. It paid off.
Yeah, that was such a crazy scene. I was like sitting here like that. It was so well done. But I would like, if they want to, Caitlin, a late addition to our video editing team. If you, yeah, give props and praises and compliments and love. If you would just like to speak about your experience with that, yeah.
Yeah, so I actually edited that scene, so I know that scene pretty well. So, hello, I'm Caitlin. I'm Kevin's girlfriend. So we were like, I saw him going through the editing process. My qualifications for editing is I was a film major for a month. So I was a film major for a month back in my freshman year of college and didn't use Adobe Premiere for about 5 years before this project. So I was like, I'm back. Yeah, the biggest thing that I think with that scene especially is like the dancing. It's a 10-minute scene. I probably spent about 15 to 20 hours on it. It's lining up the dancing and like speeding up and slowing down clips so the dancers all line up. And that goes for dialogue too. So like when they all hit a move together, like didn't happen like that originally. So we like all the editors had to like change the speeds of clips. I had like a couple of clips that had like 6 different speeds, like for one person before the end. So that way everybody could like line up together. I haven't met any of the cast, but I feel like I know a lot of you at this point. Like I would literally be editing and be like, all right, Jake, we got to get it together. Cause like I would be editing your audio or like, I'd be like, all right, also Gabby totally thought your name was Claire because your video like had that title. So last night I was texting Kevin and I was like, yeah, let's go Claire. And he was like, who's Claire? And I was like, so, it's fun as an editor when you like don't know anyone because then you like have weird things where like, I feel like I know the dancers now and like all that kind of stuff. But lining up like for scene 4, I like had to slow down or speed up the clips in between Adam talking so that Adam and Jake could line up like dialogue wise. So like there was stuff like that. I learned how to keyframe. That's always fun. But yeah, editing process, a lot of work, but it's a good time.
Yeah, the final product was so beautiful. So thank you, Caitlin, for all your labor. Yeah, does anyone have any questions for each other? I don't know, Patty, if you have any questions or anything you would like to say.
Yeah, I think I'm just amazed at what you all were able to create. You have all just trailblazed in your musical history, not by choice necessarily, for sure. I know you would all rather be in the theater together. But wow, you took the opportunity to do something really different this year with the show, and it really paid off. And I know it was just just a gigantic amount of work on everybody's part, and my hat's off to all of you because you just did a really amazing job. And I'm so proud of what you've been able to accomplish, and I hope you feel the same pride. And I wish I could, just record all the applause you would be getting in the Mandeville Auditorium for this production because it's really, really amazing. So thank you for all your work.
I actually, again, I have another question for our production stage manager, Ruby, if you would like to talk about more about your collaboration with Kevin and maybe the rest of the team.
Yeah, so I was brought onto the team in like August. And so me and Kevin have been working together since August and having Zoom meetings. He's the person I've talked to the most. I think not just like in this process, but like in general. He's the person in my life that I've talked to the most all these months together. But I think together we developed this really good partnership, which has been like such a valuable experience for me in this show. Because this is my first time as production stage manager. I've been on stage management teams before, but the first time I've gotten to work so closely with a director, and we developed this really good partnership where we could really easily tell how each other was feeling and what we were thinking. And I have this bad, like, an example of that, I guess, is I have this bad habit of like, if I have a question, I don't ask it directly. I'll ask a different question to get that answer. Like there was one time when I texted Kevin and I said, for the scene for Act 2, Scene 3, so it was the little scene and where Edward and Will have an argument and then showdown and then I don't need a roof. And the question I asked Kevin was, does Jake's does his video need to be all one video? Are there any breaks in it? And Kevin said, yes, his video needs to be all one video. It needs to be one take. And then before I could even ask my real question, he said, yes, that means Adam has a quick change. Adam plays Will because he had to go change from his Will costume to his like Nightmare Will costume. And so that was just like an example of, it was something that really made me realize how in tune we are with each other. He knows like what kind of things I'm thinking about and what kind of questions I was going to have. And I really appreciated that like Kevin knew what I was talking about and that we were able to like talk about those things and that we could text each other about those things in the middle of the day, even when we weren't working on the scene necessarily that day. Oh my God, I had a thought and then it went away. But it was stuff like that. And I think a lot of what I did for this show was just kind of a lot of what I did for the show was text Kevin questions or suggestions. And like one time, I think a lot of what I did was try to catch things that were falling through the cracks and then communicate those things with Kevin and also with like Erica and Jacob sometimes too and designers. Kevin was just the one I kind of talked to the most about everything and kind of put everything through. Like when there's a couple times in the scene in the show where actors have cell phones. And at first, when we were kind of coming up with that, intuitively, we were trying to figure out who needs what kind of props and what costumes and stuff are we going to source from the actors, and they're just going to use stuff that they have, and what do we need to actually deliver to them? And then intuitively, we were like, oh, everybody has a cell phone. Well, they'll just use their own phones, and we don't need to get anything for them. And then I like woke up in a cold sweat one night and was like, they're filming with their phones. Oh my God, we have to get them cell phones. So like I texted Kevin that and like I appreciate that he was always like ready to answer me about that and be like, oh yeah, let's go do this and figure this out then. And like, let's communicate that to the props designer. Like, but that was kind of our collaboration was me just texting him random things like, you think we should do this or do we have to like change this part or how's this camera gonna be in like the middle of the day? Sometimes it was also the middle of the night. But Kevin was really great at like being receptive to that. And I really appreciate like his partnership and giving me room to also like voice my opinions sometimes on how things were going and yeah, giving me the space to like bring more to the show than I thought I would as someone who originally I went into this thinking that I was more of like a person who schedules things and like doesn't do a lot else, but I realized that he really valued my opinions on things, so I really have always appreciated that. And so yeah, thank you, Kevin, for being amazing and for having this great partnership with me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Ruby. Does anyone in the audience have any questions? I want to be mindful of everyone's time. If anyone has any questions for anyone else on the team. You don't have to if you don't. Um, okay, if that is it, I think we're going to start wrapping up now. I want to thank everyone for coming to the Talkback. Thank you to one of our unsung heroes of the team, Haley Brown, our co-managing director, Kevin for his creative direction, and Ruby. Our PSM, thank you to Patty for your leadership, Caitlin for your video editing, both Erica and Mia for your collaboration as choreographers, Jake, Min, Roxy, and Gabrielle for bringing Ed, Don Price, Calloway, and Sandra Bloom to life, as well as thanking all the guests we have here. And so you can watch Big Fish like 4 more times, so you should all go get your tickets for that. But if no one else has anything else, thank you for coming. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your week.